Hello and welcome to the Father and Son Pastime Podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Kevin. How are you?
That's my dad. Dad, we are doing our Thanksgiving weekend podcast days. For those loyal fans, those loyal subscribers, we usually meet on Black Friday or Small Business Saturday and talk 6-7 hours. So today is that day where we're going to talk about the offseason outlook of each division. We're going to talk about free agent landings. We're going to cover a bunch. Luckily, we're going to slice it up and release it in small chunks so people can digest it rather than putting 4 or 5 hours out and assuming people know what to watch.
Is that a tie-in to Thanksgiving?
Yes, I'm sure it is.
Okay.
Slice it up like the cranberry sauce. So we're going to start with the NL East. I'll keep changing clothes for each division that we do. So we'll start with the NL East. What we'll do is we'll talk about each team's losses due to free agency or maybe some trades or retirements. And then look at their needs, whether that's re-signing a few key players, going a different direction, shedding payroll, etc., etc. We're not going to predict any of these free agent landings in this type of podcast right now. That comes later when we're solely talking about the big free agents names and their landings.
Top 50.
The top 50 free agents, yes. So, Dad, let's start with the champs.
Sure.
Obviously, the Atlanta Braves had a fantastic season, the best season in baseball, if you will. I know it doesn't look like that on paper, but they're the only ones with a ring on their hand.
The worst record going into the playoffs, and they won the World Series. Says something about the playoff system. Hot the right time.
Same with the Nats in 2019.
You're right.
So,
yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah. Anyways, I think the Nats were a wild card team that year, too.
They were.
So, even better.
Yeah.
Atlanta's facing not the biggest hurdles because Acuna's coming back. Hopefully, Azuna's coming back as well. So, that'll be really helpful. Their big piece that's leaving that they desperately need to add is Freddy Freeman.
He's not going anywhere.
I think every Braves fan's biggest fear is he's signed somewhere else, like New York, Texas, freaking Chicago. Wherever there could be a need for a first baseman that has some money right now, that's a worry for the Braves. I don't think it's going to happen. They should have already signed him to an extension by now, but I'm sure Braves fans can agree with me that, hey, we need to go keep Freddie.
The word on the street.
Word on the street. We got rumors.
The word on the street. He's looking for a 6th year. The Braves have offered 5.
Give him a 6
at a very nice rate.
Pay the man.
Good summation. I don't think he's going anywhere.
No,
I think when you saw the look on his face after they won, the pure joy, I'm thinking he's there. Yeah. Lock him up for 6 years. What's another year? What the heck? I think if I'm, Pete Rose, I'd put a lot of money he's staying.
Funny. Besides Freddie is the big, not question mark so much, but biggest need to address. They're losing a lot of their World Series team. Jock Peterson, Eddie Rosario, and Jorge Soler. Very valuable for that second half of the season and the postseason. They're not going to be able to re-sign all of them, if any.
Rosario, I bet, stays.
We'll get into the free agent predictions and all that stuff. Maybe they'll keep one. How about that?
Okay.
Drew Smiley, Chris Martin, Tanner Rourke, Stephen Voigt, Josh Tomlin, and Jesse Chavez. A lot of their pitching isn't coming back. I mean, again, I don't, especially if they re-sign Freddie to a big contract, which he deserves, they're not going to be able to retain maybe more than 2 people on this list. So, but the thing is, they don't have a lot of holes. Maybe they'll add a minor piece here, an innings eater there, a bullpen arm. They don't need a lot to add except Freddie. If they lose Freddie, they lose the offseason, in my opinion.
Well, and he's the face of the franchise.
Absolutely. Then I guess Dansby or Acuna becomes the face of the franchise, or young, thick Austin Riley. Fun. He's going to be 25 under 25. Yeah. He's my pick.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a great third baseman. But Freddie Freeman is your focus right now.
Don't forget Ozzie.
Freddie Freeman's your focus right now.
I know that, but I'm just saying they have such a young nucleus
yes.
that if Freddie stays, they got a team of the future, and they got a great farm system. They've built that well.
Yes.
So I'm thinking a little bit of youth, a little bit of side pieces. I think the Braves are going to be strong for a number of years.
I agree. And then we'll kind of get into this. I'm sure we'll predict, but I think the Braves could very well repeat the playoffs. I don't know about repeat a World Series, but keep Freddie and you have a really good, strong core team.
Not the strongest division in the world.
Correct. And speaking of the division, let's move on to the Phillies, Dad.
Nice transition.
Thank you. Years of practice. The Phillies, very disappointing season, very mediocre season at 500, still no playoffs. They're losing Andrew McCutchen, Hector Neris, really good reliever. Matt Moore, Vincent Velasquez, Ian Kennedy, who they traded for midseason, Archie Bradley, and Udubal Herrera. So a lot of pitching, whether that's starters or relievers. Dad, what are some of the needs of the Phillies?
I think they need pitching is huge. Pitching is huge. They seem to struggle in both rotation and bullpen. Bullpen has been good for a long time. They did have the MVP of the National League on their squad.
Yes, they did. Bryce Harper. He's not going anywhere.
Correct. Yeah.
Something to be happy about.
Correct. I think the Phillies, it depends how much they want to be a big market team and spend some money will determine their future. I think they got to go pitching, and some pieces to fill out the roster.
Yes.
Defensively, I think they're not the greatest team in the world, and I think they could use probably a little help at shortstop. Going from there, but again, they're going to have to get in bidding war with some folks to get that straightened out. I think there will be a 500 team depending on free agency. They might be 10 games above 500.
Okay. Hopeful for the Phillies. I'm hopeful for the Phillies too, but I have some big splashes that they need to do. I don't think Alec Baum is going to be your future third baseman. I think they tried him out. They're not too happy. Even Hoskins at first base, if there is a DH in the National League, I could see him shifting to DH and them going to get a first baseman. They don't have a left fielder right now because of McCutchen. They don't have a center fielder because of Herrera. So they need to re-sign some people. Harper's an MVP, but he can't do the outfield by himself.
Correct.
I like their up-the-middle combo of Didi and Segura. I think it's fine, but if maybe there's some rumblings in the clubhouse about trading Didi and getting a shortstop.
Making one a third baseman.
I could see Segura being the third baseman more than Didi, honestly.
Yes.
But we'll see what happens there. I think there are some change-ups, and I think the Phillies will go with a flexible, like a lot of people are doing platoons and this kind of metric says this. I can see the Phillies going that way. Wheeler, Nola, and Gibson make up the rotation right now. Zach Eflin is an innings eater at best, in my opinion, and I think he's also a little injured. So they're going to need one or two pitchers, you're right. Ranger Suarez, we talked about in that team underrated draft, whether he's going to be a starter, a reliever, or a closer. Figure him out, and then build either the bullpen around him or add one starter if he's going to be a starter. He's fantastic. Maybe they're going to be linked to Raciel Iglesias. Maybe they're going to be linked to, I know Kendall Graveman just signed, but people like Kendall Graveman on the market because they really do need some pitching.
Graveman signed.
I know, that's what I said. I know he just signed.
Got it.
We're recording this on, I think it's November 28th. Yeah, November 27th. So Graveman signed a couple days ago. But yeah, just some of that stuff. I could see upgrades. So we'll see. I think it's going to be... They have money to spend.
They do. They're a big city, and they're a big market team. They need to spend money like that. I think for some reason, they go to a certain plateau, and they kind of like, okay, that's it. And they got a lot of money invested with Harper. Seemed like they stopped after Harper. That's what I'm thinking. So, yeah, but I mean, they have potential. They have some offense. They play in a stadium that the home runs fly out of that stadium. That's what they need to do is to concentrate on some pitching and defense.
Yeah. I know if you're, just listen to us talk about the Braves thinking they could easily repeat that division. I still think they can. I'm a little hopeful for the Phillies just because I think that team needs a win. They need to go to the playoffs, maybe a wild card berth.
Yeah.
I don't think they could craft a team better than the Braves right now. But the right pieces, big names, 2 or 3 big names in free agency could put them in contention with the Braves.
Oh, I agree.
Don't forget about the Mets. We'll talk about them soon too. But I think the Phillies have a lot of questions, many more questions than the Braves need to address this offseason.
Oh, I agree. They need to look into and say, hey, we need to allocate some funds to improve this team and do it.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to the Nats. I know we just talked about the Mets. You want to do the Mets? Let's do the Mets.
Yay.
Let's do the Mets. I didn't want to talk about the Mets because I don't have a lot of hope for the Mets.
They're a mess.
They're a mess. I think their front office is a mess. We're recording this on the 27th. This is just coming off the night of them signing 3 people back to back to back, which is very rare. Escobar, Starlin Marte, and Mark Canha for left field, center, and who knows what Escobar is going to play.
Correct.
They had infielders. They had outfielders, some outfielders. So people are going to get traded or non-tendered. These were full starters. Dominic Smith was a full starter.
Yeah.
J.D. Davis was a full-time starter. Jeff McNeil was, I thought, a really good second baseman.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. Nemo is now going to be a right fielder, not a center fielder. He wasn't that great in center.
I just think what happened was they had a meeting between Epler and Cohen, and Cohen said, you do what you need to do to make us a division winner, and Epler's going to go crazy. Yeah. You think San Diego went crazy. Yeah. Wait till you see this guy. and you'll see some trades, free agency, money flying out of there. He's going to do anything humanly possible to win that division, and I'm thinking it's going to be, if they do 3 signings in a day,
Who knows?
yeah. It could be, they got to get rid of some players now.
One of, obviously, the people they were losing, speaking of losing players, is Michael Conforto. With all their signings last night, there's no need for him on the team anymore, so he'll find definitely a new team after this.
Good addition wherever it goes.
Their payroll is $200+ million. Mm-hmm. With the recent additions, players haven't gone through arbitration yet. Putting that in perspective for New York fans. I think they had such high hopes to not just make the playoffs, but make maybe the NLCS or the World Series.
Yeah.
They acquired Baez at the deadline. They're not going to trade.
He's not coming back.
Right, he's not coming back. Lindor was injured off and on the whole season pretty much. They're going to have high hopes for this team, and I still don't know if they found the magic thing because they haven't addressed pitching.
They're losing pitching.
They're losing pitching. Obviously, Marcus Stroman, is there money for him left at this point? So I don't know if we're going to see him come back. They lost Aaron Loop, which I talked about again, was a really underrated, phenomenal reliever. He's already back, or not back, but he's gone to the Angels.
Correct. Good pickup.
They're losing Familia. Obviously, they lost Syndergaard also to the Angels. Mm-hmm. Apparently, the Mets are like a farm system for the Angels at this point.
Joe Madden at his best.
Right.
And that was Epler's former team, by the way.
Cano still on the payroll. A lot of Mets fans forget about that. He's
coming back, too.
Who knows? I hope they can cut him. Hopefully, they can get out of that contract somehow. No one's talking about Cano. Cano, don't you know? There's...
That was a good joke, by the way.
Thank you. There's just a lot of question marks to be looking at the Mets' future. I don't know if they addressed question marks. I think they almost created more questions by the 3 signings they did last night.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of them. I know that we'll talk to our updated top 50 free agents. I had none of these guys going to the Mets.
Yeah. I mean, they got to address pitching.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sooner or later, they got to go, okay, we can sign all these guys for the dugout and all that stuff, but what about rotation and bullpen?
Obviously, you have DeGrom, who's your ace, and that's clear. One of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best one, when he's healthy.
Correct.
Then you have Cookie, Carlos Carrasco, right after that. Great pitcher, great number 2. Then there's another drop with Walker, and then a bigger drop-off with Peterson and McGill. You'll win maybe a series or 2, but those 4th, 5th starters, maybe they have great seasons, and maybe I eat my words, this time next year, and they're, fantastic Cy Young candidates. I don't think they are.
They don't have a great farm system either.
Right, so we'll see kind of what happens. Again, they're losing a lot of pieces in their bullpen. It's kind of like what made the Mets win games was that bullpen. I mean, Familia had 9 wins. Loop had 6 wins. Trevor May's still on that team, so we'll see what happens.
It's a work in progress. Next year's roster may not look anything like this year's roster.
Yeah. So expect some trades. I love Pete Alonso. So, I mean, maybe he'll win Home Run Derby again. I'm never not betting against that guy on Home Run Derby. But we'll see. They really have to settle some of their money because I think they have a higher payroll. Check me if I'm wrong here. For the first time, more than the Yankees.
Yes, I think you're correct. Because the Yankees are ditching some payroll.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with New York. Both teams are going to make big pushes to try to not just be a wild card team, but to win their division.
Yeah.
So that's the Mets. Mets have a can of worms right now.
The battle of the newspapers. Who can get the most ink?
Yeah. So the Mets, who knows where they'll finish? I'm assuming 3rd, just due to the Nats and the Marlins situations, which we'll transition to now. But we'll see what happens. Braves, Phillies, Mets, all depends on a lot of offseason moves. But I still think Braves are poised for the most consistent team heading into 2022.
Yes.
Talking about the Nats. Moving on to the Nets, we saw the team rebuild, get rid of pretty much everyone but Juan Soto and Steven Strasburg, I guess.
And he's got to come back from injury.
Right. And he got the Nats a World Series title. I think he's done his due diligence. But Soto's obviously your big player. Josh Bell had a really good year. Mm-hmm. Other than that, you have a lot of rookies that kind of, you did okay.
Yeah, they got to build a lot from the outside because their farm system, again, is not great. Mm-hmm. One of the worst in baseball, in fact.
Yeah.
So they really got to come hard with a lot of signings. Martinez and Rizzo are actually doing a great job of recruiting, spending times at the players' homes. They want the folks to come back. they have the money, and it's a major market team.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what they do in the offseason. Are they going to build like 2 years from now? Be great, or will they go hard and try to do something for next year? The winnable division.
It's a winnable division. I just don't know. I think the Nats did some really bad investments, especially with Patrick Corbin, that they have too much money locked up in not the right talent. If they didn't sign Corbin, maybe they could have kept Turner for a better extension or something like that.
Yeah, that was a tough trade.
Scherzer's not even linked to the Nationals coming back. He wants to play for a winner. I don't know if you saw that, and the Nats weren't on that list, so that's a big comment there.
Yeah.
Keibert Ruiz and a few other big names from the Dodgers could make some big pushes for the Nats in 2022.
They made some good trades.
Josiah Gray.
Yeah.
So there's options there. There's a lot of youth. I just don't know if it all gets together. Robles, Kaboom, Garcia. Hopefully, Ruiz. Hopefully they can form a team.
Yeah.
I think they'll be better than their 95 components, the Orioles. But I don't know how much better. Zimmerman, I know wants to come back. I think he should retire. He didn't have the greatest year this year. Maybe if there's a DH in the NL, I can see a reunion. But he's a free agent. They also lost Starlin Castro, who's forever gone from baseball, I think.
Yeah. Unfortunate because, when he had the statistics for players under 30, he was right there with one of the better players in the game because he came up at 19 years old.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And then they lost Baby Shark, Gerardo Parra. So hopefully they can get him back, maybe pair him platoon with a man named Schwarbaum in left field. But yeah, I think the Nats won't be that active in free agency. I think when you see they have money, you're right. 4 to 5 of these teams in this division have money. Sorry, Marlins. I think the Nats aren't the biggest contenders out of those 4.
Right.
You're going to see the Braves get Freeman at hopefully a hometown discount, but they'll put a lot of money into Freeman. Mm-hmm. Phillies, you got to think 3 to 4 moves for the Phillies this offseason, whether trades or free agency.
Yeah.
And the Mets have the most payroll by far in the division.
And adding.
Right. And if you're the Nats, I don't know if you're not going to sign any 1-year contracts, in my opinion. If you are, you might just trade him at the deadline like Schwarber again.
Well,
so we'll see.
I bet they do a potpourri of the people from 50 to 100 and just try to fill in holes until they build up some of the people they got from trades and everything. I can see that happening. They're going to be a lot like the Cubs.
I think they'll be a little bit more active than the Cubs, but we'll get into that. I'd rather go to the Nationals than Chicago. Let's move on to Miami, Dad. Oh, I'll take a shot. It's not anything against your city, Chicago. He's a Cubs fan, and any shots I can get at him is half the battle. Can't wait to talk about the Cubs and their non-existent offseason, and once we get to that division. Let's talk about Miami.
They've been active already.
Ooh. Let's talk about Miami. First off, shout out to Miggy Rojas. Miggy Rojas is their shortstop. Very intelligent, very gifted with baseball, has future GM aspirations, and apparently talks with Derek Jeter on the regular about not just performance at shortstop, but how to run a baseball team.
Okay.
Shout out to him. He was on a podcast last week about his free agent predictions, and we have a few similar ones. So I'm just same minds here. So not to say that I'm Miggy Rojas, but we're like best friends. They really don't have any major losses. They traded a lot of people mid-season. They made a few extensions. They had some talks with Jazz Chisholm. I think they gave Jesus Aguilar another year. They have a decent bullpen. They got some young pitching that, especially Rogers, if they can all get it together, they can win some games. I don't think they're a basement team, especially not for long. They just got to put money into their youth a little bit. Mm-hmm. I can see them signing, maybe a veteran player that can give back to the players in some way with leadership or something. I really thought Eduardo Escobar could have been really good there. Mm-hmm. But we'll see where the Marlins go, maybe 1 or 2 players. But I think they will win some games this year, and I think they'll have a better 2022 than 2021.
They did well in 2020, even though it was a shortened season and everything. And, they didn't add a whole lot. And then all of a sudden they just kind of had a really bad start of the year and never rebounded from that start. They do have some youth. They do have a good system. I think what they'll do is add little pieces. But again, I think they'll move up in that division next year. So I'm thinking they're going to creep up, 4th, maybe 3rd if things, turn lucky for them. But I think they won't be in the basement.
Dad, without saying the team names, how many teams out of this division enter the playoffs in
One.
2022? I agree. One. So we'll see who that is. Maybe it's the team I'm wearing. Maybe it's not. But I think it's just going to be another one for the East.
Yes.
We'll see. But that's our sort of off-season outlook on the East. If you have any other thoughts, feel free to share them in the comments below. Maybe your team, maybe you're a Marlins fan and you wanted more coverage on a certain player like Aguilar or Chisholm. But yeah, let us know. Baseball's always fun to watch. Baseball is fun. Brett Phillips. Anything else before we move on to the next division?
I am just fascinated with what the Mets are going to do. I just think it's going to be like, what? And every week you're going to go through and go, they did what this week? I think it's a free-for-all. And then we'll see what happens. I think Billy Epler can do whatever he wants. They couldn't get a GM, even though they offered like 10 people the GM job. None of the qualified people said yes. So when you got the top names in baseball saying no to a job, that tells me something's amiss. So Cohen may be impossible to work with. So he is maniacal about getting a winner. Whatever it takes. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I don't see their plan, to be quite honest. They're shooting from the hip.
Again, I'm sure Mets fans watching this are quite angry with us at this point. If you know what's happening, share below, because we don't, and we follow baseball. But let us know.
Yeah. 3 signings in 12 hours.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, obviously, with free agency and trades. It's going to be an active offseason for the East. Should be pretty much fun for 3 or 4 of those teams making some moves, making some pushes. And good luck. Hopefully your team, if you didn't make the playoffs this year, makes it in 2022. But yeah, we're going to move on to we'll stick in the NL, we'll say in the Central. So if you watch this all the way through, tune in, just click that next episode, and it'll be about the NL Central.
Go Cubs.
I'll shit talk his Cubs, and he'll say they're going to sign like Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo and Javi Baez.
They're all gone. All bye-byes.
Well, let's get to it, Dad. Thanks for watching. Obviously, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Pastime Podcast.
Bye.